Hi, I'm Mike Becker with PIA, and I want to thank you for joining us for a few minutes today. We have a great opportunity to speak to a number of agents around the country, independent agents like many of you, to talk about how they are taking their independent agencies and evolving, adapting to the increasing guidelines and restrictions related to the coronavirus, COVID-19, and what steps they are taking, what steps you can take to adapt your agency to better protect and communicate and serve your own insureds. So before we get going, we'll do a little bit of introduction so we know who we're talking with. We'll start with Al Pappalardo. Al, down in Louisiana. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Al?
Sure. Al Pappalardo, been a family business, 77 years now. Got 6 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee, primarily personal lines with commercial lines as well.
Great. Out to Nebraska now. Mark, sir.
Hey, I'm Mark Sewitz from Lincoln Insurance Agency. We're a third-generation insurance agency. We have 10 employees, full and part-time. The nice thing is half of it's already family here, so.
A family business at its heart. That's right. Thank you, Mark. Jump over to the East Coast to Keith Savino.
Hey, Mike. Keith Savino, a media past president of PI National. I'm based in the New York metropolitan area, which is a bit of a hotspot right now. And we've got an agency that was founded in 1864. We are a national agency, Broadfield Insurance, a member of PCF Insurance Services. And it's my 32nd year in the industry.
Great. Thank you, Keith. And down to Texas, we will go to another family agency, and we're lucky to have 2 generations of agents on the call. Red, you want to introduce yourself and also your son, David?
Sure. Red Gorman, Red Gorman Insurance in Dallas, Texas, and we've been in business since 2003. We have a team of 8, I believe, right now, and we kind of focus on 2 different areas. We focus on non-standard auto insurance, and then we focus on transportation, primarily long-haul trucking. So that's us, and my son David Gorman is on here as well.
David, how long have you been with the agency?
Started in 2015, I think.
Excellent.
2015. So.
Well, thank you all for joining PIA today, particularly in light of all the changes going on around us, not only in our own community, but literally the world related to the coronavirus. We want to talk about what agents are doing. And Keith, I think I'm going to start with you because you were in that New York, New Jersey area, which is all but an epicenter for at least for the East Coast related to the coronavirus. So tell us a little bit before we get into what's going on with your agency, what's going on with your state? What are you experiencing as a resident of New Jersey, and what are the restrictions and guidelines that you are complying with in your area?
Right. So, Mike, we have, unfortunately, like you said, we're winning the race on statistics right now. But some weeks ago, we had schools start to close. We had recommendations begin to occur some weeks ago regarding closing certain types of businesses. But now our closure orders are effectively have impacted everybody in the tri-state area. The governors of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania got together and realized that the states are so close that they should probably be on the same page just about at the same time. Since this is being recorded, we have provided to our clients a link to all 50 states as to what the closures orders are. And of course, insurance being part of financial services is excluded as an essential service. Now, additionally, we have had for some time now mass gathering limitations. We fully expect in a few days that probably will shut down anyone going anywhere, but currently there's no restriction on someone taking a walk down the street or walking through a park. However, you're not allowed to gather, which is a big difference. And we fully expect law enforcement to start to enforce that shortly if you were to listen to our local leaders. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more of that now. You're under similar restrictions, are you not, down in Louisiana?
Yeah, the governor yesterday, 5 p.m., basically said everybody has to shelter in place. And the schools have been closed for over a week. Restaurants have been takeout only. And non-essential businesses were officially shut down yesterday at 5. But really for the last week, just about every business has been closed up. And the streets are ghost towns throughout New Orleans and the surrounding suburban areas.
Sure. What about out in Nebraska, Mark?
Well, fortunately, we're sparsely populated. We don't have big issues. We do have the restrictions as far as 10 or less in gathering. We are also the epicenter for where people are sent to for treatment with the University of Nebraska at Omaha, UNMC. And it's been kind of the focal point for the SARS virus years ago, and the containment unit there. And so that's where our numbers really come from, is that place where people are housed right now.
Sure. And how about Texas, Red?
I think in Texas, we're such a broad state. So the governor has been, I think he's been nervous to put down martial law. And so he's relying on each governance of each county to do it on their own. And so we're seeing all different arrays of push to keep people in their homes. And in Dallas, it's the most aggressive of the state at this point. And essential services, obviously, hospitals, your people in the medical field, as well as banks and such. Restaurants are still open. And but we're probably, insurance agents are probably on that fringe of essential. So
Right. And we've seen,
how tomorrow looks.
yeah, and that's where we've seen in a lot of states. Just about every state that's come out so far has deemed insurance agencies as essential. Sometimes there's restrictions within that related to maybe in-person sales of insurance products and that and whatnot. So let's talk about how it's affecting agencies. One thing that's had been noted amongst this group on this Zoom call today is that everyone is from a state that has experienced some level of a catastrophe in the past couple of years. So these agents in particular have been through some level of a disaster in or around their community, which has positioned them arguably in a better spot than other agencies who haven't experienced that in terms of how to deal remotely or what technology is needed to continue to serve your clients. Al, let's go back to you on what has your agency, in light of the restrictions in Louisiana, what have you had to do to comply with those restrictions? Do you have employees working remotely? Are they not working at all? Are you using technology and software programs to interact with employees, insureds, carriers, and so forth?
Right, similar to what we're doing right now. Yesterday, we had a Zoom meeting with one of our marketing reps from one of the companies, and everybody was on that call. We unfortunately went through Katrina many years ago, which put us on the path of, okay, how do we survive the next catastrophe? And at that time, I moved to laptops, portability, and into the cloud, where I had an in-house server before. And it helped us just transition quite easily when the schools closed. We had people with kids, so they had to go home. They had already had their laptops at home. We had some additional monitors available. So everybody brought those in. We made sure everything worked. And all of my staff is working from home to try to stay away from everyone else and stay healthy. We've got a voice over IP app with our voice over IP phones. So everybody's answering phones remotely, and it seems to be working. We have some glitches here and there, but for the most part, everything's in the cloud, and it's available to agents now. Just because we've moved, those same vendors are out there. You can move your stuff to the cloud pretty quickly nowadays, and move to voice over IP apps pretty fast as well.
And voice over IP, of course, is explain the phone phenomenon behind that, what that is to those that don't know what a VoIP is or a voice over IP phone.
It's voice over internet protocol is what it stands for. So basically our phone system is over the internet. It uses the internet to route calls, and just about every major vendor out there has got a voice over IP solution. So it's
and that in a scenario like this, if you have a voice over IP provider that enables you to run your phone from your desk through a physical phone, through your laptop computer, through a downloadable app that presents as your desktop phone and desktop number. So it's particularly applicable in times of disaster like this, voice over IP phones, would you say?
Correct. And the calls going out go through the app as well, so you're not exposing personal cell phones to clients and things along those lines. So you get some structure there and protection.
So Red, you mentioned that you have some employees at home now, and some are getting hooked up as we speak to work from home. Can you talk about the process that you went through to get employees working remotely, and what have you provided them, and How's that going so far?
So we're just launching that now. We actually sent someone home today. David was working diligently. I worked on it yesterday. He was working on it this morning, but getting them our company laptops, all their software, everything's set up. And I think similar to what Al has done, which is to do it in the office, and then that way all their essential products and software is ready to go. So we want to get through the little glitches. So when one of the agents left for home today, they're 100% ready. They just plug in, set the additional monitor, so they've got dual, because everybody has 2 monitors here, and off they're able to go.
So David, what are you doing specific to cell phones or phones in general?
Yeah, so we've got a VoIP, and so at least for phone calls coming in, they can go online to the phone itself and dial in and out, receive phone calls, transfer phone calls. I mean, it's just as they're in the office. So it's relatively easy to use for them. They've got their login set up already. So just as they would accept a call in the office, they would accept it on their computer at home. So it's
Makes it a
pretty
lot
simple
easier
for them to do, and they feel comfortable with it.
So-
Keith, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, we decided to have them use the VoIP through their computer versus the cell phone. It allows us to give a little bit more software access to check to see who's on the phone live, who they can transfer to. The phone VoIP just didn't give us full support, so they're actually using it through their computer. But
Through the dashboard.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing. I know you, Keith, if you've known Keith or I've heard him speak, I know probably many of you have. He is kind of the guru among a small group of agents that have been on the forefront of technology trends in the insurance industry for several years. So, Keith, I would imagine you have a system in place with your agency.
So even before Irene and Sandy hit the Jersey coast, we were on a voice over IP phone system. And like many people, it simply meant that we moved from having a box in our office to something that was in the cloud, right? Going through that was great, but of course, lacking some of the local apps. We're going back almost, 7 or 8 years ago. It seemed like they were very separate from each other. So we did move to a vendor that provided an app, regardless of whether it was my handset speaking to the phone system in the cloud or my desktop or my cell phone. If it's a local app that's installed, it's the exact same phone system. So really, you're just using your cell phone as your handheld app. So upon hiring, we have a philosophy that employees should always work where they feel safest in time of crisis. So we didn't need an order from the state to tell our staff that. So upon hire, we go through a checklist. I've shared it with you, Mike, that is everything regarding communications. So whether that be communications from a voice over IP phone system, email, redundant email, if servers go down, even in the cloud, management systems, as well as other items such as client portals, file sharing, electronic signatures, video and meeting software, et cetera. So upon hire, it's just our checklist. So I think part of it is having gone through catastrophes, as everyone on this call has, puts you in a different position because unfortunately you went through the catastrophe in the past, but fortunately you went through it in the past, which helps you be prepared for the future.
Good point. Thank you, Keith. Now, Mark, you had noted you're more sparsely populated in Nebraska, and it hasn't the restrictions haven't hit you as hard, and hopefully they don't. You have folks still in the agency, though. Is that correct?
Right. So we're working both with people at home, which actually had traveled. So we put them on self-quarantine ourselves so that we have a couple employees working from home via laptop. Fortunately, we have a phone system that works well too. We have a Digium phone system, which is a web-based dashboard. I can monitor what they're doing route calls that way. You can do it on your cell phone. You can do it on your computer. It has very different options for different needs that you have. And it's been very good for us to do it that way so far. So again, we're here, the door's locked, which is kind of strange for people in a small town that seem to want to come in here every day to talk to us, and we lock them out. It's very difficult for us. So
What are you doing when someone comes to that door and presumably knocks?
well, of course, we have signage, and of course, there's been a big public awareness going on throughout the community on who's open, who's closed, and kind of restrictions. So we have the banks closed. However, we have the essential people like You go 2 doors down to the CPA office, and they're opening just this week, take people for their taxes. And there's certain things you have to do in person.
Sure. Red, you had noted as you had at least one person, I know you and David are in the office today actually, but stationed in the office, are you locking your front door, or how are you interacting with anyone that walks in?
So currently the door is locked. We did have signage on the door. And what we have done, among other things, is use every source we have to communicate, including phone calls. I mean, we're calling we have multiple people working on it, calling every client that we have. But we do have a percentage of clients that like to come into the office, just like Mark has, that are, their local community. They want to come in, and when they pull on that door, some, even today, some get a little irritated. We've actually had some people that we had unlock and they push their way in. They just, that sense of space isn't caught up with everyone yet. So, but we just try to be respectful and ask them to sit in the front. And today the door is locked. We are going for full immunity from all clients physically. So we'll see how it goes.
So for all of you, with a great reduction of staff in the office and some of you all but shutting it down entirely, what are you doing for things like mail and invoices that need to get paid, payroll and that sort of thing? Al, I'll start with you. Do you have a solution for that?
Don't really have a solution for the mail, the actual U.S. postal mail. I'm coming in. We have one other person who is coming in on alternate days. So we check the mail, we scan it in, we get it to where it has to go. As far as payments, we have ACH set up with our bank. We also have credit card vendor that we can take credit cards with. So we've been using DocuSign for years. So we have been training our customers for years with DocuSign and ACH. And we don't have, actually we have companies that still require wet signatures and won't accept DocuSign. And therefore, we have to come in and check the mail and get those applications and get them back off to companies and things along those lines.
Sure. What about the rest of you? Have you figured out a solution for mail? Or Mark, you're of course still in the agency, so maybe that's not as much of a challenge for you yet.
We just have a mail out in the door so they can drop it in. They drop payments on us, so process them that day since they're here. So.
What about Red, David, you guys? Is that going to be changing as you maybe spend less time in the agency? Have you thought that through?
I mean, I think for us, what our goal, because we're in the community is large. However, a lot of people look for us to be here. So ultimately, tomorrow and Friday and Saturday, there'll be one person in the office. We're going to get everyone, keep that person safe as well. They'll be here by themselves. Of course, everyone else will be available through our internal messaging and on the phone, and we'll be working. We just won't be here. But we'll be here for that person that walks up to the door and just needs that moment of personal care, even if it's through the glass.
Sure. So I want to talk about those people, about your customers. What are you telling your customers? And Keith, maybe I'll start with you. Have you communicated anything officially or unofficially to them in any capacity, Keith?
Right. So there's always social media, which, we started some time ago. We also use a CRM system that integrates with our management system. So, even prospects that we were communicating with, we can do that. And that message has been, I know we've been around for 156 years and we're sorry to, invade your email box because you're getting emails from everybody out there. But here's some important information. And then we inform them about what our process has been for quite some time. Look, we're a local agency in the Warwick area that has been on Main Street for 156 years. But we also have clients all over the country, and we are also part of a national agency. So we have an interesting dynamic of, I've got clients that are in Chicago or other places. So we have to rely on the CRM systems and the ability for us to communicate with them. And then I think some folks had mentioned about, calling and speaking with clients. One of the things we just started doing today is we created a specific web location and page that has information not only about the community, but also about the entire country for things that are important to them, including payroll rules, et cetera, right? paid time off. These are things that are important to businesses as well as personal clients. But being able to make that part of your daily conversation is good. One suggestion I have is you add a link like that to your signature line. So we said, hey, there's a great idea. Let's just make sure everybody, every time we communicate with them, as we communicate with them, they know about this information. So between social media, CRM, signature line, phone calling out, I know a couple of folks here use automated dial systems that will push out voicemails to people. Those are the ways that you can reach out to your clients, particularly since they may also be in a shelter-in-place role right now. And we do have some folks coming into the office because they feel actually best there. But again, it's their choice. And so we do keep the door locked. There is that piece of maintaining, social distancing that we're required to do at this stage of the game. And we never want to put our clients in, or our family or team members in harm's way.
Sure. Good feedback. Al, you, unfortunately, in part because of your experience with the catastrophes, you feel to a degree you're seamlessly operating within your agency for your insureds and so forth. So have you had a need to communicate anything out to your insureds?
We haven't had a need to communicate. And what I did yesterday after our Zoom meeting was I talked to just our staff and collected some of the questions that have been coming in over the last week and a half. And we're going to coordinate a response to the majority of the questions are the same when it comes to billing, what are our companies doing, things along those lines. So I plan on putting together a sheet that then I can share through social media. And I'll probably share, hey, you may have noticed or not, we're not in the office. We're doing our social distancing, but we're still operating 24.
Still here for you.
Claims or otherwise. So.
Sure. How about yourself, Mark?
So first of all, I want to thank PIA for the opportunity to meet local and national basis agents like Al and Keith and Red, because this is where I learned to prepare for something like today. They had experiences themselves firsthand with catastrophes. I had clients that had firsthand experience with catastrophes. And it's because of that relationship and the things I learned that we were set forth this possibility that's happening to us. We thought it would be a fire or tornado. We didn't realize it would be a virus that would affect us and affect every one of our customers as well. So we want to communicate to our clients that we are here for them. We're suffering right along with them. You can still interact with us. We're going to help process and do things as normal as we can. Be patient with some of the delays that are going to happen because of the way we're having to work in this new environment. But this is what we're here for. We're local. We're in the community. We're here to support them, community, and in turn, make things better.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Red and David, I know you guys have taken a relatively aggressive approach of outbound communication to your insureds in multiple capacities, including recorded messages sent directly to voicemail, to outbound telephone calls, to having a web page up. Could you share a little bit about that? Maybe David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so we've definitely taken the approach recently, with the new regulations and the stay in place for Dallas County to be on the forefront of trying to let our customers know, our clients know that we're still operating. We still have a team of agents that are working, even though the office may be closed. So whether it be through text or ringless voicemails that they get on their phone, and even a website or a page on our website, kind of giving them more detailed information about how we can interact with them, take care of their policy, just as if we were in the office. So really pushing that out, those text messages that we sent out, directing them to that site so they get a little bit more information. And like I said, that voicemail Red kind of let them know that we are still operating, still functioning, and just trying to communicate. And we've actually had some positive feedback with that of, hey, thank you for giving me a call and reaching out to me.
So, hey, go ahead, Red. Then I want to ask you
No,
about
I
a
would
specific
just say,
program.
That I put out a message to our clients, and David was able to take that, and we did it through voice message. So their phone basically doesn't ring, goes directly to their messaging, and it just pops up there. And then about an hour later, we pushed out and a text message to all of our clients saying, hey, you may have also received a voicemail, but go to our website. Here's the link, and the link explains what's going on in the city and how we're participating and how we're trying to support and help and make your life easier. And then the phone calls, and we're seeing a lot from our phone calls, calling all of our clients, and we're going, oh, I got a voicemail. Oh, I saw a text. And so I feel, I'm sure there's some people that we're not servicing the way they want it to be, but I do feel pretty good about the way that we're touching them as many times as we possibly can. My whole thing is we keep touching them until they tell us to go away. So I want them to know that we're here for them.
You had previously mentioned a specific program you're using. I believe it's called Slack. Could you talk a little bit of what is that? Which one communication need does that fulfill?
Well, Slack is an internal messenger. David was the first to find that and integrate it into the agency. It's been, it's been fantastic. Everybody loves it. It allows us to. It's not for our clients per se, and David can speak on a little bit more detail, but what it does, initially what we used it for was just so everyone in the agency can communicate quietly internally, whether with one person, two, or the whole team. Then David helped take that to another dimension. And David, would you speak on that?
Yeah, so we have a few things set up with it, like DocuSign, for instance, that we've been using. So if the application or something is signed, it gets a notification, the team is notified in there. Certain things like voicemails left from customers or new requests through our website that get linked to it. So it's internal for the agency. And then on the note of what we use for the ringless voicemail, the system was slybroadcast.com, and you can purchase like 10 to 500 to 1,000 number of basically contacts that you can load into it, and then you just upload the phone numbers that you want to send a voicemail to. And so you record that 30-second or 1-minute voicemail, which we did, and then you can send that at a scheduled date and time to those clients. And so their phone rings for like a split second, and then it leaves a voicemail from the phone number you list.
Great. Well, and while we're talking about specific technology uses, I'll mention two that we at PIA use. One is Zoom, which is what we're using right now, and it's zoom.us. Enables you to do all sorts of video conferencing, and it's great. We typically use this externally for calls like this, and specifically for calls like this, it's got a record function right into a cloud, so we can turn this into a recorded video. But Zoom has been a great tool for PIA and many other organizations around the country. And we typically use that for external messaging. But David and Red, you had mentioned that you use Slack internally. I'll just mention, and I'll do a quick screen share here, that we internally at PIA use Teams, and I'll do a quick screen share. This is my Teams app, and I can do, this is internal messaging, peer-to-peer messaging within the PIA office. Now, we are all at PIA working from home right now until we get over this hurdle with the coronavirus. So in addition to email, this is a Microsoft platform. It's called Microsoft Teams. You might already have this on your computer if you have the full Microsoft suite, but this enables me to text staff individually, or in this case, groups of staff. I can just quickly add in additional people if I wanted to into the chat. And as easy as it is for me to type a message to them, it's just as easy for me to hit this video call option, and this would ring as many employees as I wanted to, and it would pull them up on a video. They would have to accept the call. Typically what we do internally though is we just hit the audio function, and it would pull one employee in, 2, 3, 4, however many you wanted, right into an audio call directly through your computer into earbuds like this. So it's a tool that we use internally at PIA. Like I said, you might already have this if you have the full Microsoft suite of programs on your computer, but if not, you are a Microsoft Outlook user and that sort of thing. Teams has been really successful for us at PIA.
Mike, I would add that folks who used Skype previously might be familiar with Teams because that became part of Teams. That's where you pick up those options for it. Some folks should also look at the fact that if they do have a voice over IP phone system, and many people don't even know that they already have this until they contact their vendors, that you do provide apps. So we use a system, BroadSoft, which is a Cisco-based system. They acquired them some years ago. And again, those apps come with chat messaging, video calls. It's already built into our voice over IP phone system. And you'd be shocked how many people have it and don't even know they have it today.
Right.
And they're already paying for it. So it might be worth folks looking into that as well. But Teams is also awesome.
So I would mention on what Keith's saying is that when we've contacted, and we have our own white label VoIP system that we had purchased for the agency. So, but when I talk to our provider, what he tells me is, which is our IT department, and he tells me, well, what do you want it to do? Because it's virtually unlimited. So there's so many little, it's just, VoIP is, it's an amazing tool, and we use such a small part of it in our agency versus what is possible.
So to your point, Keith's point, agents might already have this. This isn't something that you necessarily needed to get squared away 6 months ago. You already might have these tools and just need to implement them.
It's called unified communications for a reason. That's what, these systems are. We call them VoIP systems, but really they've evolved from VoIP to unified communication systems.
Right.
So let's pivot a little bit. We've talked about the insured, what the agents do, and let's talk about what some of the companies are doing. And I know a lot of companies have stepped up, and Al, I'll go back to you on this. Have you heard from some of your companies? And if so, what changes have they made, or what type of concessions or, assistance have they provided that have maybe separated them from some of the others?
Yeah, the calls and the emails started coming in about a week ago, and they all are willing to make concessions when it comes to billing. If anybody has been affected by the virus, whether they were laid off or they've actually contracted the virus, or things along those lines. For the most part, they all seem to be willing to push back payments for a period of time. And that is good. We've dealt with that before during catastrophes. I think most people in areas that have been hit have dealt with that, and the companies have stepped up. There are still some questions that they don't know the answers to with regards to if somebody doesn't pay the bill 30 days later, does it cancel back to now? Does it cancel forward? And I think the companies will have to follow state guidelines when it comes down to that, as far as notification of cancellation to
Right.
vendors and things along those lines. But for the most part, everybody seems to be, all the companies seem to be stepping up.
Would you all agree in general with that sentiment, or any different opinions on what companies have done?
Our concern always is coverages. Our clients are doing things they've never done before. Maybe you have a restaurant that's now providing a delivery service. Well, maybe they don't have a delivery vehicle or auto coverage, or their employees don't have coverage for themselves. So we're kind of cautioning our customers about that and want to educate them about the limitations of the policy they might have. And the nice thing is we have seen some carriers respond and give automatic temporary coverage for those things automatically going forward to help avert some of those future concerns. It'd be nice if more companies do that kind of stuff, understanding the circumstances we're all going through now.
Keith, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, I think for quite some time now, the carriers have been fairly proactive about these things. It doesn't require a state regulatory body to require them to give more forgiveness for those folks who are affected by a crisis or an emergency. So it's interesting that I'll see a few companies proactively start sending us messages, and then we'll see, the cavalcade of companies doing it after that. Everyone seems to be supportive. Now, simultaneous to that, of course, on a state-by-state basis, we have various, regulatory bodies who are saying, by the way, you need to do this now. In New Jersey, they're looking at 60 days forgiveness, and they listed a number of types of bills that they're going to require folks to have forgiveness on. And of course, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, health insurance are on those lists for the moment. Let's see what gets approved. But you'll see things like mortgage, power bills, water bills, a variety of things, your auto payment. So there's a lot of folks in a lot of industries who are facing the same challenge.
So
whether our industry generally steps up.
So for all of you, if a carrier were to ask, and many of them are, what do you need us to do? What do you all say to that? How do you answer that to the carrier? I mean, we've heard the billing tolerance. We've heard maybe adapting those coverages or maybe modifying some of the exemptions on some policies. But is there something that, whether it's more tactical or pragmatic or strategic for that matter, that hasn't been mentioned that we could tell the carrier side of things, hey, this is where you're needed right now?
Well, I could say from an underwriting and processing standpoint, if a carrier is going to be impacted in any way, shape, or form, particularly if they were outsourcing any of their activities, I think it's really important that we know about that. There are other countries that are being impacted. There are outsourced organizations that are shutting down. That could mean that a quote goes from, 24 hours to 3 days or 4 days. It's really good to communicate and be really transparent and honest about the issues that they're each individually facing so that we can also communicate with our clients. We could have renewals coming up that we're not getting. You start to freak out a little bit and you replace the coverage because you want to look out for the best interest of your client. So knowing what each carrier is facing, when they're facing, it's important. Also, some of the billing issues that, that Al and Mark pointed out. The carriers can't necessarily change the way they bill on a per state basis times 50, in a week. It's going to be challenges as to how they handle each one of these separate requirements as well. And communicating with us and our state associations would be really, really helpful.
Sure. All right, to close out, I'm going to go rapid fire. 2 questions for each of you. And we're going to have some of the most concise bit of information in these responses. I'll tell you what the questions are so you can think about them for a minute, then we'll go around here. But one is, the first question is going to be, if you had one tip for other agents, maybe it's a technology tool or a practice that you have within your agency. If you had one tip, one recommendation for other independent agents around the country, what is it? And the second one is, and maybe you don't have an answer for this, but is there something that you have done in the past week or 2 weeks, or maybe in a prior disaster that it just didn't work for you? And it's maybe it's a little bit of guidance or caution to other agents that, hey, we thought this was, silver bullet. We thought this was going to be really helpful, and it didn't, and this is why. So we'll go rapid fire on those 2 questions. You can start with your tip, followed by, hey, here's a word of caution. And Al, I'll go up to you.
All right, let's see. First thing is trust your employees. Don't worry about them stealing, customer lists, things along those lines. Make sure you've got a non-compete, non-piracy, and go forward from there. But your employees are in this for you. When we were talked about the mail, we didn't touch on the outgoing mail. So set up a shared folder that whoever is coming into the office can print out that outgoing mail, check that folder when they're in, and then send that mail out, because there's still going to be some people when you've been around a long time that need things mailed to them, and there are companies that need wet signatures, so have that ready. And I'm going way back here as far as the tip, the things that didn't work, but did for me because I was lucky during Katrina, was we had all our computers, we had everything ready to go, but I had lost access to my file server. If internet goes down, if things get much, much worse, I would tell you to print out your customer list to an Excel sheet and print out your book of business for those customers. At the very least, you'll have a actual hard copy if you're a virtual agency and everything's in the cloud of what you got book of business wise, because that was invaluable to me when everything went down after Katrina. So
That's good information right there. Thank you, Al. Mark?
Well, of course, I'm gonna go back. Look at your association for guidance, and we're, as agents, we're in this together. Look for the support of each other, because again, we're all in this together. Push technology. I know we have a sector in the community that doesn't do technology. Typically, it's the older sector. Maybe it's a sector that doesn't speak our language. Be some way we still need to communicate with them that aren't aware of what's happening right now. And I'm at a loss to figure out how to communicate other than the old mail way. So.
Great. Red?
I would just focus on your client and your team. I mean, ultimately, the team is, if your team falls apart, you got a big problem. So make sure everybody is safe, and make sure everybody feels safe in this type of situation, which is, I've never seen this before, obviously, but make sure they all know that they don't have to come to work, that you will provide another way for them to earn and for them to keep moving forward for their families. And on the client side, make sure that all of them know that you are there for them, that you need to touch every client you have that's humanly possible. So that's what I got.
David, anything to add on that?
Yeah, just on top of the communication, I think you know, especially here in Dallas, things are changing every day, regulations for small businesses, especially. And I think even if you're not prepared, it's so important to let your clients know what you're trying to do. I think they're going to be patient with you if you're reaching out to them and letting them know you have things in the works, you're doing everything possible that you can do with those restrictions that are being possibly placed on your business. So just, you know, doing the best to stay in touch with them about that.
Great. Keith.
There's two separate areas, systems and people, right? So we put systems in place for our people to use them, and they need to use them. So redundancy is critical. You know, Al made reference to that, and I'll expand on it. Regardless of where you are, you should be able to work the same way that you are, regardless of your physical location. So just telling somebody to, you know, work from their cell phone at home is not remote. That's just away. So being able to work remote means if you got 2 monitors in the office, have 2 monitors at home. Whatever you do in the office, you should be able to do at home or from wherever you're working. So you need to expand upon that, and that's a decision that you make. Again, I'm going to reinforce it when you hire someone versus when there's a catastrophe. So you make that decision from day one, and you put those systems in place. As far as people, it is about communication, and training. So people are both your team, your family, your office workers, and your clients and your carriers. So how do you work with each of those people? And certainly having the systems in place helps you be able to do that. And I do like the idea, Al, and I'm going to reinforce something a few of you have said. You need to be able to work both online and offline. So you need to be able to do applications online, but you need to be able to do them offline. You need to be able to work in both environments because it's entirely possible with the demand on our resources right now and our infrastructure that you could find yourself having to work in an offline mode. So be prepared for that.
That is a great point. Listen, Al, Mark, Red, David, and Keith, I want to tell you on behalf of PIA and all of those listening and in the industry, I want to tell you thank you. This is a particularly trying time, and for the 5 of you to take some time out of your really busy schedules, I know, to share your experience and wisdom and some tips for others in the industry just speaks volumes, and we are all very thankful for that. And for the rest of you in the independent agent universe, we want to let you know that PIA is thinking of you, and we are here for you. We will continue to develop resources and tools to make sure that you are able to function and continue to serve your clients and be as successful as you can, and get back to normal whenever that is. But we want to let you know that PIA is will be by your side the entire time. So let us know what else we can do for you. But thank you for listening today, and we look forward to talking with you all soon. So thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you too.
Bye.